Greetings, all! Today, we'll be examining the uncommon electric-type Pokemon Pichu, the Tiny Mouse Pokémon, its equally uncommon evolution Pikachu, and its final, relatively rare, pure electric-type or electric-psychic-type evolution Raichu, the latter two of which are collectively known as the Mouse Pokémon. While they might not always be seen as the strongest Pokemon of their type, the members of the Pichu family are classic creatures that are known throughout the world and serve as one of the most defining mascots for the existence of Pokemon everywhere. Pichu possess small yellow bodies with 4 limbs, 2 legs and 2 arms, and have 3 toes on each foot and 2 fingers on each of their hands. Their round body serves to support their huge head, with a zigzagging black marking around their neck and a small rectangular tail, further possessing large rhombohedral ears with a black zigzagging border marking on their top edges. Their brown eyes are quite large and complement their tiny mouth and brown nose, and they have clearly visible, circular red cheek markings that serve to mark where their electrical energy sacs are located. It is further noted that at least one known specimen has a large, spiky outgrowth of flesh on its left ear, though this mutation does not seem to grant said specimen extraordinary powers in looking at its stats. Their evolved form, Pikachu, also have short frames with yellow fur and retain the same number of toes, though their bodies have changed form elsewhere, as they now have 5 fingers on each hand. They still have brown eyes with a similar facial form, red cheeks included, but their mouth is slightly larger and their ears are more pointed with black markings at the tips, their tail losing its black coloration in favor of yellow and having a lightning bolt shape to it, with a straight end in males and a heart-shaped end with females. Cosplay Pikachu, further having a black marking at the end of this heart-shaped form. Their final evolution, Raichu, come in 2 different forms. Normal Raichu have a larger body frame with no fingers on their hands as a result of mutation from exposure to a thunderstone, and their bodies have taken on an orange color, with white bellies and darkened tips on the ends of their hands and feet, the soles of their feet being whitish as well with an orange spot near the back. Their ears have taken on a more exaggerated form with yellow hair on the inside and dark brown hair on the outside, complete with curly tails on the ends. Their facial structure is the same as before, minus their cheek spots having turned a yellow color, but the tail is much larger, having a thin, dark brown wispy cord of a form along most of it before ending in a huge, lightning-shaped bolt structure at the end, the tip being blunted in females and a sharp point in males. Additionally, these creatures have an Alolan variant, whose form very much looks the same as normal Raichu, but with a softer, more rounded form to their tail, which they perpetually ride upon, white markings at the ends of their hands and feet instead of dark brown, more curly ear forms with a golden yellow outer color and dark brown insides, a deeper orange body color, and bright bluish yellow eyes. The members of the Pichu family are rodents biologically, and share with some other rodent Pokemon families the ability to generate and release electricity from their bodies. As is the case with most in this category, this comes down to the existence of electrical sacs in their cheeks that act as batteries for storing electricity. While these creatures are able to use these sacs and chemical reactions within them in order to produce electricity on their own, it is often easier for them to simply absorb it from their surroundings, oftentimes doing so while sleeping in order to waste as little time and energy doing it as possible, their tails often being the prime source from which they absorb said electricity. Although this can prove to be a problem if they wake up groggy, as they have been known to accidentally release their electricity when in such a state, and while they may be weakened if they lose most, if not all of the electricity in their bodies, they can usually replenish their power easily by holding their tails aloft and absorbing energy directly through them, or by having a fellow family member shock them to restore their power completely, though the former option sometimes leads them to get struck by lightning, as their bodies serve as excellent conduits for the energy. These creatures are completely herbivorous by nature, and will often feed on berries that are normally too hard for other rodents to handle, using their electricity to zap and soften their hard skin. Unfortunately, this does not always work out well for them, as they sometimes can go overboard and use too much power. As such, overcooked blackened berries are usually a clear sign in the wild that these Pokemon are around. While they might not appear to be that dangerous, and really aren't much so at a young age, Pikachu in particular can charge up enough energy in their bodies to unleash bolts of energy as strong as natural lightning bolts, and Raichu can go further in unleashing electrical bursts of 100,000 volts with ease, making them surprisingly dangerous electrical hazards to have to deal with. In fact, their bodies course with electricity so much that they actually glow slightly at night when fully charged, and produce a tingly feeling when they make contact with the bare skin of others, and it is important that they discharge their power periodically, for if too much charge builds up in their system, it can cause their bodies physical stress, and, in the case of Raichu, make them extremely aggressive towards any and all life forms. Thankfully, despite their electrical powers, these creatures are among the easiest of electric-type Pokemon to raise and can make for great partners in most cases, serving as great companions for any sort of trainer to start out with. Because of the constant flow of electricity in their bodies, these creatures normally have access to the static ability as their only base ability, while those that are more inclined to being able to readily attract and absorb electricity through their tails can also have access to the lightning rod ability as a hidden ability. Furthermore, Alolan Raichu, as a result of their psychic abilities, are able to absorb electricity coursing through the ground even without making contact with it, and use it to accelerate their bodily movements when electric terrain is present, doubling their speed stat and in turn granting them access to their signature Surge Surfer ability. As far as their stats are concerned, in the case of Raichu, while their bodies are able to store a great deal of electrical power in them, their overall natural powers and bodies are not built for intense battles in a lot of cases, their bodies in particular being quite soft and unable to take much in the way of damage, resulting in most of their stats being below average for fully evolved electric and/or psychic type Pokemon. The only exceptions to this are their base attack stat, which is surprisingly strong and is a consequence of their ability to use electricity to increase the velocity and in turn the impact of their physical strikes, and their base speed stat, both being above average for a fully evolved electric type Pokemon. They might not be the most outwardly dangerous members of the electric type to encounter, but these rodents are still a lot stronger than they look and can easily prove to be an electrical nuisance if not taken care of immediately in a fight. As baby Pokemon, Pichu retained the basic anatomy of their evolutions and possessed the same electrical sacs that Pikachu and Raichu use to store their electricity, but in their infant state, these sacs are quite small and are unable to hold much of a charge at all, preventing Pichu from normally getting access to anything stronger than basic Thunder Shock and Thunder Wave moves naturally. Moreover, the muscles used to control the discharge of electricity from their bodies are weak as well, resulting in Pichu being unable to control their powers fully. Even the slightest disturbance, such as becoming amused or scared, can cause an involuntary reaction that forces them to discharge all of the electricity in their bodies at once. This shock is strong enough that it can readily zap an adult human and cause some considerable pain, but this is a two-way street, as the bodies of Pichu are underdeveloped and unable to resist the flow of electricity in their own body, so these discharges ultimately end up shocking them as well. Brave Pichu might display their courage and willingness to play with other Pichu by touching their tails together, discharging a small amount of energy and shorting themselves out in a display of electrical sparks. However, those that are not so brave will often be frightened by the flash of sparks and start to cry before running away, unwilling to use their powers for at least some time until they feel safe again. While they can still absorb electricity into their bodies like their evolved forms, these creatures generally have a harder time doing so, and thus must wait for the air to be very dry or for there to be a passing thunderstorm overhead to truly charge themselves up effectively, giving off the sound of crackling static electricity as they do so and becoming highly energetic, limiting the overall combat potential. Even so, these creatures are able to use their infant state to utilize their emotions more freely as a weapon in battle, giving them exclusive access in their family to the charm, sweet kiss, and nasty plot techniques, and will gradually get better at handling their electrical powers as they age and gain experience. It should be noted here, though, that there are two other things that help to make Pichu stand out from similar creatures and other baby Pokemon. For one thing, these creatures are known to have a unique variant known as the spiky-eared Pichu, named for the unique outgrowth of flesh on their left ear. Only one of these creatures is known to exist, and while it is uncertain how the growth happened, it is thought to have been the result of excessive time traveling with a Celebi. The Specimen does not seem to be any more powerful than a normal Pichu, but it does have access to unique moves like Pain Split that are otherwise completely inaccessible to the family, in exchange for never being able to evolve due to the mutation previously mentioned. Secondly, Pichu and by default the other members of their family are the only Pokemon able to naturally learn the devastating Volt Tackle attack, one of the strongest electric-type moves recognized, and under normal circumstances, only Pichu can initially inherit the move if a mother or father Pikachu is holding a light ball when bred, granting these small beasts a powerful move that goes far beyond what they normally would be thought to be capable of. While Pikachu might be seen as a true mascot for Pokemon everywhere in the world, it is noted that in the wild, these creatures are not necessarily that safe to approach. Living in forested environments normally, these creatures usually live in large groups where they can adjust for their weaker powers with sheer numbers, and it is usually a bad idea to get near them without ensuring that they are completely comfortable with you first. Pikachu will raise their tails into the air and use them to measure minute changes in the electromagnetic field around them in order to detect oncoming predators and opponents, and yanking this tail is rarely ever a good idea, as they will more often than not try and bite anyone that dares to do so, if they are not caught in a lightning strike from their tail being zapped by an overhead storm. Despite their small forms, these creatures are able to generate enough power in large groups to potentially cause lightning storms, and are thus a powerful force to be reckoned with in these cases, discharging their electricity from their cheeks the moment they are angered against any and all that get too close to them, or even if they simply come across something new they are unfamiliar with. Thankfully, it is usually quite easy to tell when they are wary of something or someone, as they will release crackling electrical energy from their cheeks when in this mental state as a warning for the offending object or party to stay away. Perhaps not surprisingly, it has been suggested that these rodents be used to run power plants in places where they are abundant, such as the Alolan region, but such plans have really not gone through yet in most locations due to the difficulty of wrangling and capturing enough of them to make it worthwhile, especially since the forests they live in often end up being frequently struck by lightning due to their presence. Regardless, these creatures are not to be trifled with in many cases, especially since they have access to a unique Z-move, the Catastropika attack, which acts as a superpowered form of the Volt Tackle attack that can deal immense damage without the recoil normally associated with the attack, as long as they are holding a Picanium Z crystal. This applies even further in regards to an item called the Light Ball, a strange object crackling with electricity that Pikachu naturally bond with and draw energy from when they are holding it, and as long as they are holding it, it doubles their attack and special attack stats, transforming them into powerful offensive fighters that even the strongest of defenses might have a hard time standing up against. With all of this said, it is important to note here that Pikachu, aside from their normal form, are also known to exist in 3 other unique variants. First of all, there are the all-female cosplay Pikachu, which are specially bred for use in Pokemon contests and have the ability to take on different elemental powers and moves depending upon the type of outfit they are wearing, which are designed for each of the specific contests. For the cool attribute, Pikachu Rockstar has access to Meteor Mash. For the beautiful attribute, Pikachu Bell has access to Icicle Crash. For the cute attribute, Pikachu Popstar has access to Draining Kiss. For the clever attribute, Pikachu PhD has access to Electric Terrain. And for the tough attribute, Pikachu Libre has access to Flying Press. It is currently a closely guarded trade secret as to how these Pikachu are able to access such diverse power, but it nonetheless makes them a potentially powerful force on the battlefield if used correctly, and especially effective when placed within the contests they were initially designed for. Secondly, there are special Pikachu that have come to regularly wear slightly loose-fitting hats that once belonged to their trainers as a form of both mating display and out of personal preference. It is not entirely certain where these hats come from, but it seems that the Pikachu that wear them are unique from normal Pikachu at birth, as they are the only ones that react with Picanium Z crystals, and thus the only ones that can have access to the 10 million volt Thunderbolt attack. Though it might not be as powerful as the exclusive Catastropika attack the normal Pikachu have access to, this immensely upgraded variation on the Thunderbolt attack has a massively increased critical hit ratio, making it a devastating weapon that few opponents would expect to see coming from such a small beast. Thirdly and lastly, there are special Pikachu that are used as partner Pokemon in the Kanto region that are not only able to learn a number of powerful, unique moves that other Pikachu are incapable of learning, namely the Zippy Zap, Floaty Fall, Splishy Splash, and Pika Papow attacks, but also have stronger base stats than their regular counterparts, with slightly increased base HP, defense, and special defense stats, and considerably increased base attack, special attack, and speed stats. Though these Pikachu generally prefer not to evolve, their advanced access to specialty moves and increased base stats can serve to make them much stronger than normal Pikachu and in turn, a more viable threat than they might seem otherwise. Pikachu are normally unable to evolve in any natural capacity, but they do react suddenly when exposed to the radiant energy of a Thunderstone, mutating and evolving into Raichu right on the spot and gaining access to the Thunder Punch attack immediately upon evolving in many cases. Similarly to Pikachu, Raichu have a tell as to when they are fully charged and ready to unleash their power, as their ears will stand up straight as they prepare to unleash it. These creatures are able to generate an enormous amount of electricity in their bodies and can discharge it at a moment's notice, even going so far as to absorb energy from the ground by planting their tail into it if they completely run out of power. Because of the sheer amount of power they do have, Raichu have a hard time holding a full charge for long periods of time without becoming aggressive towards all, their trainers included, from their muscles being stressfully overstimulated. So in order to relieve them of their power, these creatures will plant the tails into the ground when overcharged, and will discharge the excess electricity straight into the ground where it is safe to do so, oftentimes leaving black scorch marks in the ground that make it easy to identify the locations of their nest, as they will rarely go very far from their nesting grounds to commit this act. Though they might not be incredibly large, and are not so common as a result of people generally liking Pikachu over them, these rodents are able to produce electrical discharges strong enough to knock out Indian elephants with even the slightest contact when fully charged, and in turn are not to be trifled with unless one has Pokemon that are completely immune to their electrical powers. It is lastly noted that, within the Alolan region, there is a special variant of Raichu whose power extends beyond that of normal Raichu and serves to make them wholly distinct from the norm. It is uncertain what exactly causes this unique form of Raichu to appear only in the Alolan region, though there is a great deal of evidence suggesting that it has to do with the local diet, as these creatures in all stages of their life are said to adore a special type of sweet and fluffy pancake that is made by humans through a secret Alolan recipe that alters the way in which their physiology changes when they evolve. This might even explain why their cheeks produce a sweet fragrance when they are rubbed, which the creatures, adorably nicknamed Hodad by locals of the region, seem to enjoy very much. What is known though is that Alolan Raichu are distinct from their normal counterparts in not only having slightly decreased base attack and defense stats and slightly increased base special attack and special defense stats, but, more importantly, are partial psychic types and gain access to the psychic attack immediately upon evolving. Though not enough to keep their base attack stat above average for a fully evolved psychic type Pokemon, these extrasensory powers allow these creatures to utilize psychokinesis to control the electricity inside and around them, to the point where they can use their power to constantly hold themselves aloft in the air and actually ride their tails like a surfboard, giving them a quirky and adorable appearance. This access to psychic power helps to make these creatures not only more versatile in their moveset, but, interestingly, also grants them access to a unique Z-move known as the Stoked Spark Surfer attack. And while it requires them to hold an Alolan Z crystal to use, it is a powerful variation of their Thunderbolt attack that is guaranteed to leave the target with paralysis if it doesn't defeat them outright, overall helping to make these abnormal rodents a far more fearsome force to go up against relative to their otherwise calm and pleasant demeanor. Despite being outclassed by many other electric-type Pokemon families, the members of the Pichu family are classic staples in understanding and admiring Pokemon and more than do their job in representing the power the electric type can bring to the table. You might have to go out of your way to find a rare Thunderstone to get them to reach their full potential, but even without one, as long as you have a Light Ball, these rodents can be a powerful force in a fight and definitely not worth underestimating. If you do manage to come across these critters in the wild, do yourself a favor and try to resist the urge to run over and pick them up. They might not mind playing with others that they trust, but if you do this to a wild one, you might get quite the shock as a punishment, enough so in the case of Raichu to make sure you are never able to readily pick up an electrified object or creature ever again. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description. With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.